October 8th, Zelensky released a video address said that he has approved plans of some special operations against of the security service of Ukraine against our country. They were prepared, taking into account a potential delivery to the AFU of American missiles, long-range missiles, Tomahawk. This was discussed on October 11th and 12th between President of the U.S., Donald Trump, and Zelensky. Their press services reported on this. A detailed opinion of our country was outlined in the Kommersant newspaper by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. This interview is going to be published shortly. I think that today, in the afternoon, you'll see the first part of the interview, and tomorrow the full version will be available. This interview will feature approaches towards the escalation of the conflict on the part of Zelensky and everyone who's behind him, and the delivery and supplies of the relevant weaponry. Let me note that comprehensive responses to the answers in this context will be available shortly. I can reiterate that the attempts to use the threat of terror and to speak arrogantly to Russia from a position of strength is unacceptable for Russia. October 13th, U.S. was visited by high-ranking Ukrainian emissaries. They wanted to lobby the interests of Kiev regime. Head of the Office of the President, Andriy Yermak, Prime Minister Yulia Sverdenko, and Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Rustem Umerov. They want to finalize the mega deal to sell to the U.S. to purchase weaponry to the tune of $90 billion and to sign with Washington an agreement to supply to the U.S. Ukraine-produced drones to the tune of $10 billion. The agenda also features the strike capabilities of the AFU, strengthening of national energy, and harsher anti-Russia sanctions. The documents will be ready for signing on October 17th during the meeting between Trump and Zelensky in the White House. Contributions also made by European high-ranking officials. October 13th, Kaja Kallas visited Kiev. She confirmed the readiness of Brussels to help Ukraine militarily and financially. She said that Ukrainians are encouraging the whole world through their bravery, and they need support. We will come back to that later. To substantiate her words, she positively responded to the journalist's question about the potential supplies of Tomahawk missiles. And I quote her. Kallas said that we welcome all tools that make Ukraine more powerful and weaken Russia. October 15th, today, NATO headquarters, co-chaired by 31st session of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, the Ramstein Group, is taking place. This co-chaired by Great Britain and Germany. Minister of Defense Ines Shmyhal is going to present to its participants updated mobilization data in Ukraine and discuss questions of further support of AFU in terms of additional air defense systems, and also the use of precision-guided weapons to strike inland of Russia inland. There is no political will towards peace in the West, and we see testaments of that. The Kiev regime does not have any will towards peace whatsoever. They are dragging out the conflict. They pursue their short-term interests. They try to not permit the collapse of their world order. They want to inflict maximum damage to our country, and they're not thinking about consequences for them as well. October 10th, one of the British newspapers said or assumed that Ex-Prime Minister of Great Britain Boris Johnson that prohibited the Kiev regime in early April 2022 to continue the talks with Russia. So there are indications of direct material gain in the statements of Boris Johnson. According to this newspaper, the ex-Prime Minister could get £1 million from businessman Christopher Harborne. He's the largest auctioneer, stakeholder of the TQ defense company that supplies Ukraine with UAVs and robotics. Boris Johnson in September 2023 brought Christopher Harborne to Kiev using his private jet to visit a closed-door meeting in the Military and Technical Center. Frankly, the scenario proposed by the British journalists looks legit. Multi-billion contracts continue to be signed with Western military-industrial complex, and the Kiev and Boris Johnson and other leaders gain their advantage through that. Of course, everyone wants to hear his comments because it is a very serious accusation. One should, of course, comment on one's own movements. Was Christopher Harborne really on board the aircraft that flew to Kiev? Kaja Kallas, let me remind you, said that Ukrainians encourage the whole world. So now on the mobilization of Ukraine, in Ukraine, the number of deserters continues to grow. In September, it amounted to over 19,000 people. The total number in 2025 amounted to 162,000 people, and since the beginning of the special military operation, it has amounted to 285,000 people. They deserted the AFU. The Kiev regime is inclined to distort the statistics, and this number might be even higher. We are now talking about the official data only. The observers evaluate it to be 500,000 people. They note that Kiev is not able to reverse the trend of desertion. Neither the barrier troops nor tightening penalties for unauthorized absence can help. On the daily basis, about 105,000 young Ukrainians, 18 to 22 years old, abandon Ukraine daily. That's a perfect encouragement of Ukrainians for Kaja Kallas. A few commanders have recently been talking about the reduction of draft age, mobilization age, until 23 years old. And they have also been talking about the creation of a parallel army comprising 16, 18-year-old boys, so that one can have a ready-to-fight army in 5 years. No one wants to voluntarily die for the Kiev junta, but Zelensky does everything to bleed the country dry and to deprive the future generations of everything in the coming decades, so that there is nothing left of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the West continues to control the Ukrainian media narrative to downplay the significant losses of the AFU on the front line and to continue the war until the last Ukrainian. We have learned about new contributions of the EU to the Ukrainian independent journalism. It has received 6.6 million euros. The grants will be allocated to support the frontline media, to educate investigative journalists, and to create 15 regional media hubs to combat misinformation. Now, as for the disinformation, where's the source of it? Of course, that's the Institute of the National Memory of the Ukrainian people. We have repeatedly commented the law on the principles of state policy of national memory of the Ukrainian people, according to which any attempts to challenge the fabrications of national radicals regarding Ukrainian resistance to foreign dominations in the 20th century and the fight against the Russian aggression since 2014 is now qualified as propagation of unreliable information about the Ukrainian history and is equal to anti-Ukrainian propaganda. Repressive functions has been given to the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory. October 7th, a list was published of persons and events that contain the symbols of the Russian imperial politics. They cover the historical period up until 1917. The black list of persons glorifying the Russian Empire includes writers like Ivan Turgenev, Konstantin Aksakov, poets, of course, like Alexander Pushkin, Mikhail Lermontov, Vasily Zhukovsky, composers, Mikhail Glinka, Modest Mussorgsky, artists, Vasily Surikov, and others, and even seafarers, Simon Dezhnov and Fedey Bellingsgausen. Moreover, the list includes Petr Bagration, a military commander, and surprisingly, Decembrists are also on that list. We will come back to that. But there's also a white list of persons and events that are acceptable. They can exist in Ukraine. This list includes Nikolai Gogol, Maxim Leskov, Vladimir Korolenko, Anton Chekhov, Alexander Kuprin, artists Ilya Repin, Karl Brulov, Ivan Kramskoy, Ivan Ivazovsky, and Decembrists as well. How can that be possible, you might ask? Well, there are good and bad Decembrists, as they think, in Ukraine. For example, Rylev is a good Decembrist, and the rest is bad. Apart from Rylev, everyone else has been blacklisted. The whitelist also includes founder of scientific pedagogy, Konstantin Uchushinsky, scientist Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, and others.
I quote, they did not propagate the imperial policy and supported the ideas of freedom and humanism. According to this logic, Pushkin did not support these ideas. I'd like to specify here whether all the participants of this get-together titled the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory needs an appointment with a psychiatrist or not. Besides all of this mentioned above, the so-called experts from this institution even got to Ivan Sasanin. He bothered them. The Borodino battle and Ivan Sasanin are recognized as the myths of the propaganda, the Russian propaganda. They are concerned that the battle not far from Moscow, where French aggressors were defeated, then they were participated by Sumsky, Akhtursky, Zumsky regiments. They cannot tolerate the idea that ordinary Russian people could live their lives for the Tsar. and their motherland. They want to erase from the public space all the names of places to do with Borodino and this heroic deed of Ivan Sasanin. These lists will be added with, I quote, new data about people and events during the Moscow Tsar era, Russian Empire, Russian state, the USSR, modern Russian Federation. All these people mentioned here are figures of our country before 1917. How can they become a part of the process of decommunization that started after 1917? Probably this fact is forgotten, or their mental state is okay with that. With the lack of these hints, we see strange activism and derussification. In October, they said that Nikolaev renamed the streets of those historical figures and cultural figures who were not banned. They overdid the plan. The Kiev regime used the ideology and practice of Ukrainian national radicals and turned into a neo-Nazi dictatorship. This is the only way to preserve their dominance. All these facts and other facts confirm the relevance of to denazify and demilitarize Ukraine and remove threats coming from its territory. As our leadership said, all of them will be achieved. One more announcement on October 17th, the press center of the Russian MFA will hold a briefing of Ambassador at Large Rodion Miroshnik, dedicated to the crimes of the Kiev regime against civilians for July-September. During this period, we see the growing number of strikes against civil infrastructure, a high number of casualties among civilians. During the briefing, new statistic data, testimonies will be presented. They are collected based off the data from victims and witnesses. They are solid evidence of the criminal nature of the Kiev regime. Now about the situation in Moldova. The current authorities in Chisinau, the Chisinau regime, continues pursuing anti-Russian policy destructive for the country. On October 11th, President of the Republic, Maria Zakharova, accused Russia in, as she said, hybrid attack on Moldovan democracy. You see, the Romanian citizen understands better what's going on with democracy in Moldova. As per usual, no details or facts were given. They are only groundless slogans. At the same time, in Moldova itself does what the political scientists and experts openly call a hybrid attack on principles of freedom and democracy, and abandons the sovereignty of the country. Officials in Chisinau continue to close down the information resources that are unwanted to the authority. On October 7th, the Service for Information Security of Moldova, without explanations and a ruling and a court decision, blocked the independent website Gagos News. It is known for publishing criticism and various opinions about the current regime. And from Sanders' point of view, no pluralism of opinions is needed. Chisinau does not hide their aspiration to become part of NATO security system. On October the 6th, Chisinau saw the beginning of the work of the consultative group within the intergovernmental agreement between Moldova and Germany, signed in May. Under the agreement, the German advisors in the four years will have to help implement projects to upgrade military sector of the Republic. The media publish information that on the territory of the Republic there's uncontrolled spread of firearms. There's inflow of Ukrainian soldiers deserted from Ukrainian army to Moldova, as well as mercenaries who leave the zone of hostilities in Ukraine. This does not mean more security and stability for people in Moldova. We're not talking about democracy and so on here. On October the 8th, the government of Moldova endorsed the new military strategy for 2025-2035. It directly enshrines that, I quote, the continuation of military aggression of the Russian Federation in Ukraine with possible expansion to the Republic of Moldova is the most serious security crisis in Europe over the last decades, and a possible expansion of territories. We could probably agree with the second part, but they should write who is to blame for that. And the expansion of territories occupied by Russia is a serious direct threat to security and statehood of the Republic of Moldova. The key elements of these documents were plans to increase defense expenditures to 1% of the GDP. However, the resources to implement such a policy are not available for Chisinau. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development decreased the forecast of the GDP growth Moldova this year from 1.8% to 1.5%. Over the first 6 months this year, GDP in Moldova decreased to 0.1%, while Moldovan leadership rants about the European future. A third of the population lives in poverty. The economy of the country under the current leadership makes not progress and even goes down the drain, but people in Moldova understand that the so-called European integrational project and convergence with NATO imposed to them strips the country from dignified future and turns their territory of impunity and poverty. According to the publications in the media, the Moldovan society sees the feeling of desperation and total mistrust to the authorities. This is a natural outcome of the current policy. Sergei Lavrov commented on the situation in the Middle East during the special session with a journalist from that region. We would also like to say that we note with good feeling that in the recent days the situation in Gaza saw positive developments. The needed steps were taken. Tzahal retreated their forces to the agreed lines. Hamas returned all living Israeli hostages. Almost 2,000 Palestinian prisoners were released. We hope that with the mediation of Egypt, Qatar, the US, Turkey, the agreements will be compliant with. In particular, it concerns the ensuring of unobstructed supplies of humanitarian aid, the creation of all the necessary conditions to return the displaced persons, the building of the civil infrastructure. Russia, since the very beginning of the crisis in Gaza, actively and consistently promoted the cessation of hostilities and the start of the political and diplomatic efforts to settle the crisis. We sponsored a number of resolutions. All of them were blocked, which made it impossible to work out a consolidated response of the Council. However, we are determined, together with partners, to contribute to the collective effort in the region aimed at long-lasting stabilization of the situation in the zone of the Palestinian and Israeli conflict and in the Middle East in general. The natural outcome of this process, in our opinion, is the comprehensive solution of the Palestinian problem on the well-known international legal framework. We're sure that the two-state solution endorsed by the relevant resolutions of the Security Council General Assembly will be able to bring long-lasting and sustainable peace to all the peoples in the Middle East. I would like to also draw attention to the fact that in the upcoming publication of the Sergei Lavrov's interview to a commerçant, there's special attention given to the situation in the Middle East. We received a lot of questions about development in Madagascar and the actions that our citizens can take to ensure their security. We are concerned about the development in Madagascar, and according to the information we have, the power were taken by the military. The 2010 constitution was suspended. All the state bodies were dismissed besides the National Assembly that voted for impeachment to the president of the country. They declare the plans to create in the nearest future a committee from the security bloc representatives. It will have a mandate of an executive body for the 2-year transition period. We believe that the return to the democratic path of development will be implemented in the shortest time possible. The situation with the resolution of the UN Security Council on Haiti. On September 30, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 2793, transforming multinational security support mission in Haiti into the gang suppression force. The Russian Federation, China, and Pakistan abstained during the vote on this clearly raw document. While making this decision, Moscow took into account the requests of the authorities of Haiti and neighbors of this long-suffering state not to stand in the way of this project. Despite our evaluations on this product are the same. The sponsors, under the pretense of immediate measures to stabilize this degrading situation in Port-au-Prince, and by creating an artificial time pressure, has all the chances to repeat the ill fate of the previous document. This will not settle the situation in the country. We have to focus on removing the root causes of this protracted crisis. That include the destructive external interference into internal affairs of the state in the forms of direct intervention or political engineering schemes. With the acquiescence of the U.S., Haiti continues to see an unobstructed inflow of illegal armaments despite the current embargo of the UN Security Council. Given the explosive situation in the Caribbean, provoked by the aggressive rhetoric and the actions of Washington, were especially alarmed by the status of the future forces enshrined in the Resolution 2793. The de facto will be independent of national and international control, with almost unlimited mandate to use forces against all those, I quote, that the constant group of Haiti partners led by the U.S. can describe with the vague term gang. Unfortunately, no one can guarantee that sponsors of this resolution won't come up with a creative way to link their military activity to fight drug cartels with station in Haiti. Serious concern is the hints from the U.S. about the link between the proverbial Venezuelan drug cartels and gangs in Haiti. There are no facts here, and we see that it as a test in the waters, so that in future they attempt to use that as a pretense to interfere into the affairs of the sovereign state under the mandate of the UN Security Council. We cannot let this happen. Now about the situation with the tanker Eagle S. It was linked in the media with the problems in the Gulf of Finland in December 2024. In the media on October the 3rd, the District Court of Helsinki handled the case of 3 crew members of the Eagle S tanker. The court ruled that it has no jurisdiction to consider the case. The prosecution already appealed this decision. The proceedings given this are likely to continue. However, all the hearings that already took place, that were widely covered in the press, already showed that no Russian participation or trace or whatever they say that the West tried to find there are not actually there. The vessel in question is registered on the Cook Islands and belongs to the company from the UAE. The Russians are not among the crew. All the anti-Russian hysteria started back then around the Eagle S is yet another information fake. However, no other approach from our former Western partners shouldn't be expected. We also received another set of questions about the audits from within the continuous monitoring approach of the Universal Security Audit Program of ICAO. The questions were various: what we think about it, and so on. We asked experts to give comments on this. Russian Federation is a member of ICAO, and it is obliged to strive and comply with the ICAO standards, including to protect civil aviation from acts of illegal interference within the continuous monitoring approach of Universal Security Audit Program. The ICAO expert during such audits evaluate the possibility of a state to ensure the due level of control over the activities in aviation security according to the guidelines on continuous monitoring within this program. The type, scale and frequency of the audits, the risk-based approach is used. The schedule varies from 3 to 10 years. They can take place in a full scale format, or with the auditors going to the country, and in expedited form through documents.
Earlier, Russia was subject to full-scale audits in 2006, 2011, and 2019 and received high rankings, which reaffirmed the high status of states that is able to comply with international standards of air transport, including defending it from unlawful interference. One should note that not all global powers has such high ratings as Russia. Let's take a concrete example. The US, for example, in 2023 it was subject to the audit. It received 70.67%. Russia's rating is 89.74%. Moreover, there were three issues that cause concern that are connected with the ineffective implementation of minimum security requirements. ICAO published in January 2025 an electronic bulletin. According to it, the Russian Federation was not on the plan for the audit, neither in 2025 nor in 2026. In late June 2025, in accordance with the new bulletin, Russia was included into the audit plan for 2026. At the same time, states were excluded from the list that were subject to audit in 2018-2019 and received lower ratings than the Russian Federation. As for the European states, for 2026, these are the Netherlands, Croatia, Slovenia, Denmark, and Portugal. They already were subject to the audit in 2017-2019, but only in the documented format. One should note that all European Union states are being audited only documentarily. On-site audits are only planned in Russia, Belarus, and Tajikistan. The plan contains states that were audited from 2016 to 2019, with the exclusion of Iran, El Salvador, and Tuvalu that had never been audited. The inclusion of the Russian Federation to the plan of audits for 2026 and the non-inclusion of the states with lower ratings raises justified concerns. In 2022, when the special military operation started, the Russian Federation faced politicization from ICAO with regard to norms and principles of international air law. Everything was dictated by the collective West in a biased manner. The political bias of ICAO decisions with regard to Russia is clearly seen when it comes to ensuring flight safety. It creates significant risks for making similar decisions for air safety following the audits within the ICAO Universal Security Audit Program continuous monitoring approach. Following the 42nd session of the ICAO Assembly that took place in Montreal in September and October, we see the key role of the pro-Western camp that undermines the trust towards ICAO. It politicizes the agenda, going even farther from the specialized technical UN agency and from the effective regulation processes needed for the sustained and coordinated development of the international civil aviation. The inclusion of the Russian Federation into the list of the audit demonstrates the unfounded politicized decisions within the ICAO. We do not exclude the possibility that foreign auditors can get access to the aviation complex of the Russian Federation and that can later be used to get information to the detriment to the security of our state. We are celebrating 140 years of the establishment of the diplomatic relations between Russia and Argentina. We will publish materials to this regard. October 20th to 22nd will see the 17th Assembly of the Russian World. It will bring together Russian studies experts, teachers of the Russian language, philologists, interpreters and translators, writers, journalists, public figures, diplomats, and representatives of the diaspora abroad, of course, the clergy. Delegates from 106 countries will take place in the forum. Traditionally, representatives of the Russian Federation, high-ranking officials take part in this forum. Chairman of the Supervisory Board of the Russian Foundation, Elena Polskaya, will open the assembly. The plenary session is devoted to the fundamental contribution of the Russian world to international development, past, present, and future. It will be hosted by Rector of the Moscow State Institute of International Relations, Mr. Torkunov. The Foundation Russian World systematically implements educational, enlightenment, cultural, and humanitarian projects, supports public and non-profit organizations, professional associations, scientific associations, media, national associations of Russian studies experts, whose activities focus on promoting the Russian language and culture. The Foundation has created and supported the network of Russian centers and classrooms abroad where the Russian language is taught. The goal of the assembly is the exchange of opinions on relevant issues of preserving the standing of the Russian language abroad as a key means to promote unbiased, versatile information about Russia, its accomplishments and heritage, as well as about needs and possibilities on this track. Panel discussions are planned on the Russian language as a foundation for shaping identity, the current state of the Russian language, the contribution of the victory to the current world order, history and the modern times, the Russian symphony, the bridges of culture and art between peoples, new media dimension, the expansion of the dialogue, the strengthening of the trust, the live translation or the AI pluses, minuses, and the people's diplomacy. The results of the Assembly will be reflected in the final declaration of the Assembly. The National Center Russia will hold the International Cooperation Forum. Rossотрудничество and the Russian Znania Society are the main partners of the forum. It has been devoted to the centennial of the People's Diplomacy Institute. It is one of the means of diplomacy exercised by public associations and the people that is aimed at strengthening the friendship and cooperation between peoples. It all dates back to 1925 when the All-Union Society for Cultural Relations with Foreign Countries was established. We continue this laudable mission. Rossотрудничество has been contributed successfully to the development of versatile ties. It decides or makes decisions to develop contacts and platforms for cultural, scientific and humanitarian exchange, supports the Russian language abroad, protects the historical truth and protects traditional, spiritual and ethical values, helps our compatriots to feel safe abroad. This is a great time to remember good traditions of the people's diplomacy and to assess its contribution to the building bridges of friendship. We expect to see more than 2,000 Russian foreign participants, including foreign leaders of public opinion, prominent cultural and artistic figures, renowned scientists, representatives of the creative community, and leaders of international organizations, and state figures and diplomats from more than 60 countries of Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The forum will feature cooperation in culture and science, the protection of true sovereignty and the fight against neocolonialism, neo-Nazism, and the victory in the Great Patriotic War. They will also discuss overcoming issues such as hunger, illiteracy, lawlessness, etc. The scale of the forum demonstrates that despite the sanctions pressure and the efforts and attempts to discredit our country continues to attract those who shares our values of good neighborly relations, cooperation and mutual respect. We invite Russian and foreign journalists to cover this event. All the links and the form for accreditation will be available in the transcript text of the briefing. In late October, the Council of Young Diplomats of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs will hold the 8th Global Forum of Young Diplomats. It will be held with the help of the Diplomatic Academy of Rossотрудничество. It has been held since 2017, has been established itself as a unique discussion platform that should contribute to strengthening the network of contacts between current young diplomats and at increasing bilateral and multilateral cooperation based on trust and respect. We expect over 130 delegates from 60 countries of Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America. The speakers will include the leadership of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, public and political figures, and renowned experts in international relations. The program and the agenda will be rich. The main theme is going to be the diplomacy of the victory. The topics will also include the 80th anniversary of the UN, new challenges and opportunities in digital technologies, cooperation in youth politics, sports, education, culture. The delegates of the Youth Diplomatic Gathering would take part in the International Cooperation Forum on the centenary of People's Diplomacy. On the last day of the Global Forum, the official ceremony for the admission of new members to the International Association of Young Diplomats will take place. We will publish all of the necessary information in the transcript text of today's briefing. October 27th to 29th, Caracas will hold the Russia-Venezuela Business Forum. Strategic partnership will be organized with the support of Intergovernmental Russian-Venezuelan Commission of the High Level and the Rostock State Corporation. The event will unite the representatives of state structures of both countries and leading companies and enterprises interested in implementing joint projects. The key spheres of the Russian-Venezuelan cooperation is energy, machine building, IT, logistics, agriculture. The Russian delegation will present the Venezuelan sides with advanced technology and goods. They will also study investment opportunities of the Bolivarian Republic and interests of local enterprises. Cooperation in tourism and Russian equipment will also be reviewed. Different cultural and sports events will take place, including a cyber sport tournament. There will be digital works exhibition of Russian Venezuelan artists, tasting of Russian cuisine dishes. A unified multimedia space will be set up at the forum venue with 3D technologies where visitors can virtually travel to Russia and see sights of our country. Moscow is going to also host a dialogue on Fakes 3.0. It is a prestigious platform featuring information verification experts, investigative journalists, students, civil society, media. The forum is being held with the support of the Russian Foreign Ministry. It has been organized by the autonomous non-profit organization Dialogue Regions. The main partners are the Russian news agency TASS, New Media Workshop, as well as the Global Fact-Checking Network. It was established following the event Dialogue on Fakes 2.0 that took place last year. Today it brings together over 100 experts from 50 countries of the world. This initiative is very relevant. The number of fakes continues to grow exponentially. At the same time, Western media mainstream is actively using these fakes to carry out disinformation campaigns aimed at our country. In particular, Europe is whipping up a drone hysteria. The Kiev regime, using the support of Western media as well as UN Secretariat, continues to propagate fake news about thousands of allegedly abducted Ukrainian kids and children. The sabotage on the Nord Stream pipelines has not been investigated fully yet. This topic is being diverted through various fakes. We see different fakes about Bucha as well, and different provocations that took place there. That's why this event is very needed and this structure is very useful. This year, the event will bring together about 100 people from 80 countries that will discuss countering fake news at the international level. The agenda will discuss panel discussions, roundtables, educational sessions, and key challenges of today. Generative AI will be discussed, its impact on media and information space, the creation and combat against deepfakes, as well as fakes in education. The representatives of the Global Fact-Checking Network will present research about fakes that have been propagated in different countries in 2025. It has been internationally recognized. This forum, it has been put on the calendar of the Global Media and Information Literacy Week that this year takes place from October 24th to 31st. One can register and get accreditation on the website of the event. Live streams of the main events will be available online, and this link will be provided in the transcript text of this briefing and on other digital platforms of Russian Foreign Ministry. I'm ready to answer your question. We have the International Live magazine with us. Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. How can you comment the statement, and rather the threat of French President Emmanuel Macron addressed to Russia that said that Russia will face serious repercussions and pay high price if it refuses to continue the talks on the Ukrainian crisis? Let me quote him, if you allow me. If Russia continues to persist in their belligerent intransigence and refusal to come to the negotiating table, it will have to pay a high price. That's what Emmanuel Macron said. It's another attempt, a very rude attempt to impose on Russia requirements of the Kiev regime and its European handlers. Such threats of Western politicians have been there for many years now, since Crimea was reunited with Russia. Those people who wanted to support the Minsk agreements inward included France. They said that they wanted a peace solution. They wanted to join this mechanism, but it turned out to be a fake. They didn't want to do that, in fact. So we've seen many pieces of evidence. France is not interested in a joint good faith search for ways to resolve the Ukrainian crisis. It is aimed at escalating the confrontation with Russia. It is evident to us that under the pretext of a ceasefire and peace talks, Paris is trying to give the FU a respite to regain strength. They are militarizing and escalating the conflict. We're observing a clear and consistent pattern. The worse the state of affairs in France is, the more aggressive its statements are. We've seen another narrative about the so-called shadow fleet of Russia. But it was on the eve of the political crisis in France. One has the impression that France is doing that to compensate for its failures. It wants to divert French citizens from internal political tsunami that France has been engulfed with in recent months. The French leadership, different political forces, have been talking about the president's resignation as the only means to resolve the national crisis in the country. And it seems to me that each and every one of us can see the growing dissent of the population that sees the exacerbating economic problems of the country, and we see the reaction of the French government. They just want to share that the problems are allegedly created by Russia. But Macron, doesn't matter what he says, well, French citizens have to pay a high price for his so-called for his accomplishments, and I hope that rank-and-file French citizens are fully aware of this. Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have Renovosti with us?
Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. If I may, we have two questions today. The first one. This year saw very productive contacts between the leadership of the Russian Federation with the President and Prime Minister of Mongolia. What do you think about the prospects of the first development of the bilateral Russia-Mongolia relations, including infrastructural projects? I can say that Our bilateral relations continue to gradually develop with this country within the comprehensive strategic partnership. We have a comprehensive multi-level interaction. We implement joint economic projects aimed at infrastructure development and continued energy supplies to Mongolia. An important event was the participation of President of Mongolia in the celebrations of the victory in the Great Patriotic War, as well as the visit of Prime Minister of Mongolia as head of the representative delegation during the 10th Eastern Economic Forum. We believe that the head of the Mongolian government will traditionally participate in a regular session of the Council of Heads of State of SCO member states. Our country, in all situations, base its relations with neighbors based on the principle of non-interference in internal affairs. We have maintained relations with the current leadership of Mongolia, regardless of the party that is in power, on the mutual beneficial basis. Thank you very much. And if I may, another question. Japan yet again raises a question about Russia's interference into internal policy of the country. Last time they talked about manipulation of elections to the upper chamber of the parliament. Now we're accused in undermining the program of African cooperation following the Tokyo International Conference on Africa Development that took place in August. What can you say about it? I can say that on July 24th, during our briefing, I gave commentaries on this. They are relevant. Tokyo should stop rubber-stamping Western Russophobe campaign and go back to their own national problems that are accumulating. Instead, we see, unfortunately, the ruling elites in Japan and media under their control abandoning sensible common sense and intellectual honesty, care about the interests of their people, but they want to distract people from serious internal issues. What is clear now, and we have talked about it, all of this turns into an unprecedented crisis in Japanese political class. It is evident, it is a reality. They cannot understand what to do with the leadership of the country. They'd better deal with their own issues, but I think it's a universal advice. Is Vestia with us? Is Vestia with us? No, they are not. Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. We are here. We have two questions. First, on October 13th, the leader of the European diplomacy, Maria Zakharova, came to Kyiv with a visit. During the press conference with the Foreign Ministry of Ukraine and Biga, she said that Russian economy ostensibly weakened, and now time works for Ukraine, not Russia, as it used to be. What can you say about it? You know, first of all, I would like to draw attention to the fact that recently, on October the 2nd, the president of our country talked about it, and he shared evaluations about the economy of our country, about our prospects, and so on. Second, I would like to say that Kakalas do not probably understand that, but her institution introduces sanctions against our country, but under this unprecedented pressure, our economy is developing. And I can also add a number of figures to this. The economy continues to develop at a higher rate in comparison with the countries who introduced sanctions against us, I mean the EU countries. Over the last 2 years, the GDP growth in Russia was some 4%, and the state debt was lower than 20%. Russia, in terms of growth rates, is in top 3 of G20 countries. According to the World Bank, Russia is 4th in the world and 1st in Europe in terms of the GDP on the consumer parity. But such statements are very strange given the serious situation with the economy in the European countries. Probably Kaja Kallas should, from time to time, get to know the economic figures of her association. Let's help her. Last year, the economic growth in the EU was 1%, and the industrial production decreased. In 2025, the state debt in relation to the GDP increased to record high 83.2%. European business has to relocate abroad. There's more social problems. According to the EU statistics, 27.5 million people in the EU in 2024 face serious economic difficulties. Some 47 million Europeans couldn't pay for the heat. With the lack of economic successes, Brussels continues to bet on the escalation of the Ukrainian conflict. Ukraine is used to link in the internal fragmentation and fight with political opponents. The only possibility to justify this to their people is this. Given the stagnation of the European economy following the anti-Russian sanction hysteria and failed social and economic policy, to ascribing systemic mistakes and miscalculations to an enemy, given total censorship, works for the EU. This helps people like Kaja Kallas to tour around the world and not to answer the questions of their own people regarding what happened to the EU. Thank you very much. We have one more question. What can you say about the last statement of the U.S. President Donald Trump about the ultimate end of the war in Gaza Strip and his statement that it is the end of the era of terror in the Middle East? You know, I'd rather to address you to the interview of Sergei Lavrov to the Kommersant newspaper. It is about to be published. It comments on these statements. If you feel it is not enough for you, given the developments, we'll share additional evaluations, but I think it will have a detailed assessment. Thank you very much. Thanks to you. The only thing I would like to say, we have to remember the history of this crisis. We commented on the efforts of President Trump on ceasefire in Gaza Strip. Of course, we support the plan of the American president. We understand that the successful compliance regarding the stabilization of the situation in Gaza have to open up the situation in the on the basis of a two-state solution. A lot of efforts will have to be put in this process, but it can happen only with all regional players working together. It is clear for us that the most protracted problem in the Middle East, this crisis, creates conditions for terrorist recruitment. The factors of this process this is contributed by other problems in the region, and this requires a comprehensive approach. The effective fight with this universal evil can be done only by the joint efforts of the international community. We think that it is necessary to strengthen the central coordinating role of the UN based on the international legal framework and the role of states, the abandoning of double standards and politicization of international counter-terrorist cooperation. Thank you. Thanks to you. Is China Media Corporation with us? We had two questions, but you answered to them to our colleagues. You talked about it during your last briefing. In October 13th and 14th, Beijing saw the Global Summit of Women. President of China, Xi Jinping, underlined the role of women in global management and called on to strengthen their protection in the conflict zones. What does Russia think about it? These days, the Global Summit on Women took place in Beijing. Within the forum, decisions were made that would strengthen the access of women to education, health care, will strengthen international environment. This event also gave an impetus to bilateral dialogue between Russia and China, and the coordination of practical steps on this track in BRICS and SCO. Joint projects with China and other friendly countries are the most effective. At the same time, they ensure respect to traditional family values and create conditions for professional career for women. The approach is very easy in Russia. A woman shouldn't choose between family and career. The state helps to combine those things. It is valuable that leaders of our countries set the tone to strategic partnerships and humanitarian exchanges to increase the involvement of women in global decision-making. The Council of Women of Russia actively cooperate with All China Federation of Women. We have a memorandum. We expand projects, joint projects, exchange best practices. In SCO and BRICS, we suggest common standards of human-centered solutions and coordination of projects, strengthening friendship of our peoples. The summit in Beijing yet again confirmed that the gender equality issues and I prefer to talk about equal rights, is the subject matter of special care of the state, and the national programs of Russia and China confirm that. Thank you very much. Thanks to you. Is Rita with us? Good afternoon. We have one question. Sergei Lavrov, during the press conference to the Arabian media, said that Syria is interested to preserve Russian military bases on their territory. I would like to specify one thing. Was this the subject matter during the negotiations between Russia and Syria? Were there any additional requirements for Russia from Syria? Does Russia hope to preserve its military presence in the country at the level, the current level? You're absolutely correct. Sergei Lavrov commented on this topic during his meeting with Arabian journalists. Our agenda covers a lot of issues of Russia-Syria interaction. We discuss our military presence in the country as well in the context of a possible change of Russian military facilities there. Of course, such issues are discussed behind closed doors. We told everything we could about it. The dialogue, including between the military ministries, continues. We will inform you regarding this process. Thank you very much. Thanks to you. Is Ukraine.ru with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. Thank you for the participation for the possibility to participate in the briefing. Question 1. Donald Trump said that Russia will have a peace agreement with Ukraine. He also added, otherwise he will have it badly. He meant President Putin. Is it a real threat from President Trump, in your opinion? It is his style. It is clear. We already answered this question. As to relations to the statements of Washington, as to the whole complex of measures, negotiation process, various tracks, I'd like to say one more time, please know the interview that is going to be published today in the Kommersant newspaper. Every question you have will be answered there. I would like to ask one more thing about the peace deal in Gaza. He said that it was not possible without bombing facilities enriching uranium in Iran. What do you think? Will Trump treat the Ukrainian conflict the same way? I think that representatives of the U.S. should comment on the foreign policy of the U.S. International law gives the possibility to implement both diplomatic steps as well as steps to use other possibilities in terms of non-proliferation and the use of peacekeepers, the use of force in some cases. All of this is regulated by the international law. All of this is mentioned there in the UN Charter, in the resolutions of the Security Council. It's not up to some sides and their visions. It's an issue of global international law that answers all these questions. There's a wide range of tools, but they should be applied in line with international law. But the U.S. violate those rules, isn't it? They did it many times. Even more, I remind you, recently the permanent representative, some representatives of the U.S. Who gave the speech at the UN said that Washington will treat selectively the implementation of the UNGA resolutions and choose only those that is beneficial for them. You see that? Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have News.ru with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. I represent News.ru. I have only one question. How would the Foreign Ministry comment on the continuing discrimination of the Russian-speaking population of Latvia and other violations of human rights in the Baltic countries, and what measures will be taken by Russia to protect its compatriots? We have been commented on it many times. We did it yesterday, and we do it pretty much every day. We are telling you about different steps that have been taken by Russia for decades. The Russian Foreign Ministry is following carefully the development of the situation around the inhumane decision of the Latvian authorities to deport from their country our compatriots that have not confirmed their knowledge of the Latvian language. Of course, it's barbaric, and we condemn it. This is an act of Nazism with regard to the Russian-speaking population. We're not yet talking about massive deportations. Compatriots can use different administrative and legal mechanisms to protect their rights. Of course, this heinous practice of Riga is causing particular outrage. They are pushing people from the Russian-speaking population from the country. Around 3,000 people were forced to leave the country. They use targeted deportations as well. We're living in the 21st century, and the first quarter of the century has ended, and we see such practices. The people that were deported include a 75-year-old poet, Ludmila Meshinch, and 82-year-old war veteran, Boris Katkov. What are they trying to establish ghettos or something like that? And we see that it is happening in the countries that use the word civilization pretty frequently. The Russian embassy in Riga will support our compatriots that found themselves in this whirlwind. Our compatriots that are targeted by these Nazi acts will be supported, and we will welcome them in every nook and cranny of our country. We have demonstrated it in word and action. We will use every tool in our arsenal to attract and draw attention to this issue at international relevant platforms. We will, of course, show what this neo-Nazism of Latvian authorities is about. We have drawn attention to massive violations of human rights in the Baltic countries, the persecution of our compatriots, crimes of the Latvian authorities, their efforts to demolish monuments and memorials dedicated to the Soviet army and the fighters that were liberated their country from Nazism during the Great Patriotic War, and we publish reports every year. All this is reflected in the joint report of Russia and Belarus on the situation with rights in certain countries. It is also reflected in the report on the situation with glorification of Nazism, propagation of neo-Nazism, other practices. These documents also contain recommendations of international, universal, and regional mechanisms that focus on human rights. We talked about it about a year ago, on October 30th, 2024. We have submitted our request addressed to Latvia because it did not comply with the International Convention on Eradicating All Forms of Racial Discrimination of 1965. It is a frank and systemic discrimination of Russians. It is a glorification of Nazism. Of course, we will also turn to the International Court of the UN, the International Court of Justice. And we will talk to the international community, and we will expect their response. Do we have Xinhua Agency with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. I have the following question. In recent days, we have heard reports that on the border between Russia and Kazakhstan, there is a line of trucks that transport cargo from China. Can you comment on the situation? What's the reason behind this, and what measures are taken by the Russian side to solve the issues? Kazakhstan is a strategic partner and a key ally of our country in the Central Asia. We have the longest border, land border in the world. So one of the key areas for cooperation is the creation of the unified Eurasian transportation and logistics framework that will help to provide a secure and reliable transit of cargo. We focus on our transporter infrastructure, of course, modernizing and updating the border checkpoints. The Russian Foreign Ministry is carefully following any information on obstructions on the border. We have information that the lines are available on the stops on the territory of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and they do not cross the border because they wait for the instructions from the cargo shippers. Allegedly, the checks on the border have become more harsh, but all these events are organized in strict compliance with the regulations and are aimed at protecting the economic interests of the Russian Federation, life and health of our citizens, and the interests of the consumers. But I would assure you that there are no obstructions for free transit of the cargo. Our ambassador is also in contact with his colleagues. Do we have Lenta Ru with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. The head of the Polish Bureau of National Security, Mr. Zenkiewicz, said that if you look at the cyberspace, one would say that Poland is in the state of war with Russia. He accused Moscow of hybrid attacks, sabotage, and attempts to attack water systems of Russia and critical infrastructure in the EU countries. How would Russian side evaluate such statements? Well, one should not look at the cyberspace. One should look at how Warsaw is engaged in the confrontation in the hot phase. I'm talking about fueling the Kiev regime with lethal weapons. Non-lethal material means funds, what it is done for. Obviously not to provide security. It's done for a different reason. And we heard the explanation from the EU officials. It's done to inflict a strategic defeat upon Russia. This Mr. Zenkiewicz, do you think he does not realize that? That you should only analyze the cyberspace. They are exploiting the information security to escalate the rhetoric. It has been done in the interview to Financial Times. He accused Russia in some hybrid operations. They're openly acting against our country. They understand that the weaponry and funds supplied to the Kiev regime are used to kill civilians and children in our country. Certainly, there has been no evidence provided in the interview. Under the pretext of the Russian threat in the cyberspace, selfless tasks are being solved. For example, to get grants, to get support. It is a very frequent mechanism in Europe. Now there is a register of UN contact points. But there has been no one that addressed us. But we have not received any replies from Poland either. If we start talking substantially, they refuse to engage in the dialogue. As for aggressors in the information space, we should first and foremost talk about NATO. This alliance openly talks about the preventive operations, cyber operations. It's called flexible defense. It's not a secret that these measures are being tested during relevant exercises. And we're also talking about the support of Kiev hackers. Do we have both news? But you have already answered my question. Thank you very much. Do we have news front with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. I only have one question. Many experts and political analysts in Bulgaria say that they're concerned that NATO impacts the change of legislation that with regard to defense. Does that mean that the EU is preparing for a war? Or is it only a political question and just a way to earn money for the elites? Is that a threat for the security of the Eastern Europe? We have repeatedly said that the fact that a country joins the North Atlantic Treaty results in the fact that it will lose its sovereignty. As far as the preparation for war, NATO officials, including Rutte and the majority of European politicians, continue to call upon an armed conflict with our country that, according to them, might occur in, but they are changing these figures, of course, always in 5, 7, or 10 years. It's a part of information propaganda campaign aimed at diverting the attention of the population from domestic problems to external threat, consolidation or coordination of the society, and for combating dissent and political opponents. They can establish such internal frameworks only through creating an external enemy that would lead to nothing good. They have gathered such experience already. It's going to lead to a dead end. We should work on strengthening our regional security, not on the ultimate destruction to please the ambitions of the Western political elite that are afraid of losing their dominating position in international affairs. And they are, their military-industrial complex is rushing to gain more money. Do we have Radio Saga with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. I'd like to greet my colleagues as well. Danish officials accused Russia unfoundedly that Russia had sent drones to Copenhagen and the airport to disrupt the civil aviation of the kingdom. Have there been any contacts with the Russian Federation in this regard? Maybe one should also note the timing of this issue. At that time, there was also information about sterilizing procedures of Inuit women. They did not consent to medical checkups, and hundreds, if not thousands, of Inuit women were sterilized. Can you comment on that? As for the timing, well, it might be the case. Let me elaborate on the drones. According to the information, the investigation by law enforcement bodies of Denmark on alleged flights of unrecognized UAV is continued, but there was no official request from the Danish authorities, and the leadership of Denmark openly recognized that Russia has placed no role in these incidents, but it is actively used by Copenhagen and media that it controls to whip up the anti-Russian hysteria. It is done to divert attention of the population from domestic problems. Maybe these include issues that focus on the indigenous population, maybe other problems of philosophical nature as well, but it is being done to divert the attention of the population from domestic agenda, to militarize the country, to get more money for private enterprises, part of the military complex. Russia condemns unfounded speculations, and we hope that Copenhagen will act responsibly and will abstain from the steps that might increase the tensions on the European continent. I'd also ask about the Soviet authorities and the way they treated the indigenous population and the women in the Far East. And we see, I'd like to investigate, of course, this issue at a deeper level. Thank you very much. Do we have Greater Asia channel with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. We have just one question today. Last week, the St. Petersburg International Gas Forum concluded, and landmark event was your substantive and relevant dialogue with Chairman of the Board of Gazprom, Alexei Miller. During the plenary session, among other things, you noted the interconnectedness between the protection of traditional values and the provision of complex energy security of our country. Can you please comment on the current goals of information support for the energy agenda of Russia, and what should domestic media focused on in the interest of implementing the energy strategy of the Russian Federation? Of course, during the St. Petersburg International Gas Forum, we commented in depth this topic as far as the traditional values and the complex energy security goes, the interconnectedness between these two notions. It's not just these two things are linked. It's that the united approach has been used towards both of these things. Environmental management and resource utilization for Russia are not merely a matter of profit. It's a philosophical and value-based issue. It is a responsible approach that is being shaped towards international affairs. It is the reflection of our civilizational model that is based on careful treatment of nature, the responsibility that we bear to our citizens and our partners in business and international relations.
As to the aims, they are the same: to ensure unbiased approach, the justice, development. Our special sincerity despite the dominating approach that are imposed by the Westerners, who call on to directly or indirectly to new colonialism or neo-imperialism as to the aims of the information support. They're the same: to ensure unbiasedness, countering fake campaigns, debunking of ideas that Russia ostensibly uses the energy as a political weapon. We have always promoted sustainable and predictability in global energy markets, and a special role belongs to Russian media. They counter these attacks in the information space. They abandon politicized cliché and cover the situation based on facts. Other media can do that too. They cover professionally the situation. They raise questions that the West prefers not to raise, including the blow-ups of Nord Streams, abandonment of the EU of long-term energy contracts with Russia, the real price of mottos about green transition that lead not to sustainable development but to growing prices. We need detailed, timely and wide covering of key task trends and events in Russian fuel and energy complex. The development of world economy requires ensuring its energy sector. We promote the support of the global energy security for the interests of the peaceful development of states within or based on international law. We continue think that the key aims are to preserve sustainability of world energy markets. This contrasts with the model of behavior imposed by the collective West. The unilateral restriction imposed by them influenced some 40% of world's resource base of carbons. They targeted Iran, Venezuela, Russia, but also consumers, including in the growing markets of the Asia-Pacific region. We deem it unacceptable to introduce unilateral legitimate measures to put pressure on Russia, including in energy. The sanctions policy of the West has the aspiration to achieve economic benefit, not through fair competition behind it. The methods seriously harm global security, energy security, and facilitate volatility of prices. Russia is responsible participant of the world energy markets. We strictly comply with our commitments. Sustainable supplies of our raw materials make it possible for friendly states to ensure the economic growth and achieve their social tasks, fight the energy poverty. A key place of the energy policy of our country belongs to the energy strategy of the Russian Federation for up to 2050. It was endorsed on April the 12th this year. This document outlines the aim of the development of the Russian fuel and energy complex. It is to achieve the new, more qualitative state of energy, including the accessible and stable supplies to the population and the economy of products and services of this industry. Both Russian and foreign media can focus on this. Today, on October 15th, Moscow In Moscow, the 8th International Forum Russian Energy Week started and will last until October the 7th. As President of Russia said, it has come to be one of the most significant international events to discuss relevant issues in energy and fuel industry. It is participated by Russian and foreign officials, leaders of major energy companies, experts, and researchers. The interesting projects are presented there. Scientists also participate in the event. They exchange opinions about trends and prospects of the development of the industry, reviews problems of energy transition, but they do it not in a politicized way, but based on facts. Also, new agreements are signed. Thank you. Is author E with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. We have one question today. Given the military parade in Pyongyang and the demonstration of new types of armaments in North Korea, how does military and technical cooperation between Russia and North Korea developing? Can the Russian MFA confirm the information about the plans of supplies of BMD-4Ms and the training of paratrooper units in North Korea? An important component, not even important, but a comprehensive component based on documents on the Treaty on Comprehensive Strategic Partnership between Russia and North Korea. It was signed on June 19th, 2024. It does not contradict international commitment of our state, of our country. Is Golos Atechester with us? Good afternoon, colleagues, Madam Zakharova. As usual, we have two questions. The first one. Recently, Special Envoy of President Trump, Stephen Witkoff, said that the implementation of Trump's plan on ceasefire in Gaza Strip and the searching for peaceful settlement in the Palestinian and Israeli conflict can influence the Ukrainian crisis. Can this mean that Trump, for example, can suggest a similar plan in Ukraine with international administration in new regions? Please wait for the new interview. You'll read the evaluations of Sergei Lavrov regarding the efforts to settle various conflicts on implementation of a strategy of different officials in the White House. You will see the answer to this question too there. Question 2. Recently, head of Pentagon Hacksat said that they additionally investigate the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan under the Biden administration. They plan to have new developments in the case in mid-2026. But Russia plans to develop cooperation with the Taliban in Afghanistan. What can happen if the authorities in the U.S. declare that there were violations? I don't really understand the question. How can I would like to say certain and clear things as to the Russia-Afghanistan relations we already mentioned. We acknowledged the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan in July this year and want to develop mutually beneficial relations with Kabul. We This fully reflects the aspirations of our peoples and the interests of strengthening of regional security. I don't know what the U.S. Report is going to state and how it can influence, but we build our own relations on the basis of international law. The contents of the report is up to Washington. You'd better ask them. Is Tavria with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. Good afternoon. We have a question about the Time of Heroes program. Does the Russia's MFA participate in this program? Do diplomats and experts from the ministry give lectures? We, as an agency and as employees in our personal capacity, pay a lot of attention to supporting veterans of the special military operation. We do it on the basis of our work. We pursue the diplomatic aims here, and we care about it deeply on the personal level too. Traditionally, Sergei Lavrov meet with the participants of this program in May 2024 between the first first part of the program, also before the second part. The MGIMO University implements a special program for the veterans of the special military operation. The Защитники Отечества Foundation also joined this program. It is curated by Anna Tsivilova. Over the 2 years, the project trained more than 30 people. For now, ministry employs a number of veterans of the special military operation. They work very well. Thank you. And another question, it's about international agenda. It's about the Nobel Prize. There's a lot of talks about it. There's a feeling that they want to use the word as a bargaining chip. Do you think? This year it is seen especially vividly. You're mistaken. It is clear not only this year. If you analyze the results, everything will be clear to you. It happens not only this year. Before that, many countries talked about the biasness of their words. I cannot agree with you here. Unfortunately, there's a component of politics here, and it has always existed. We saw it many decades ago. We see examples in modern times. The history distorts, and the true value, true intention behind the word is distorted here. We see more and more biasness here and distortion of the principles underpinning the structure. You can see how the Nobel Peace award is used as a tool to promote the political interests of certain Western countries and to criticize unwanted regimes. It's no secret that Norway is among the leaders in this NATO circle. If the Nobel Committee can claim independence while given the award, well, I cannot say that. It's not the problem that happened only this year. This mechanism has been taking place over the last decades, and so this committee is not objective. We talked about it already. It is difficult to say what is going to happen. We can state only the things we can see now. According to the Nobel's will, the criteria that he enumerated transformed, and sometimes they were completely distorted. Thank you very much. Thanks to you. Is the embassy live with us? Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. Good afternoon, colleagues. I represent the embassy live. I have two questions. One, Dushanbe saw the meeting of Vladimir Putin with the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. What key issues were discussed during the meeting? What agreements were reached? President Vladimir Putin answered this in great detail. I hope you read everything. Russia confirms our aspiration to promote our relations within the agreement, and Baku saw the trilateral meeting dedicated to the transport matters. It was participated by Mr. Avachuk. There were contacts with the Azerbaijani side. We want to continue working with Azerbaijan. A step forward is the release of Russia Сегодня correspondent. And question two: how can interaction between Russia and Azerbaijan develop within regional integration processes, including the CIS? We're interested in close cooperation with Azerbaijan in various regional formats, SCO, CIS, the Caspian 5, the regional cooperation 3+3, the Eurasian security framework. There's a tradition that the Prime Minister of Azerbaijan participates in this as a special guest. Another event took place in September the 30th this year. We expect cooperation with Baku. This year, Azerbaijan hosts 3 capitals of the CIS. It's in various areas, and in September 28th through October the 8th, the third CIS Games took place. More than 1,500 athletes participated in them. We commented on this already. We welcome Baku joining documents in Baku adopted on October the 10th. They cover transnational crime and for 40 years of the Chernobyl catastrophe. We supported counterterrorism and extremism until 2028, as well as a number of documents in the CIS country in ensuring regional security. Thank you very much. Do you have any more questions? I will be ready to take them. If no, then I say goodbye to you. I wish you all the best. Goodbye. Goodbye.